joined. I didn't realize this was a party. I thought, I'm just signing up to,
Well, when I'm warming up for the show and we're letting people get in the chat room, you got to throw on some tunes for them.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Let them mingle. All right, man. I'll get us started, and we're gonna get right into it, and gonna have a good time. Here we go. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Blackout Tips podcast. I'm your host, Rod. Joined as always by my co-host,
Karen.
And we are live on a Wednesday on Crowdcast. You can find us on Crowdcast. You can watch us live, leave comments, and talk inside the chat room. People love to do it. You can also listen to the show and watch the show on YouTube and everywhere else you get podcasts. Make sure you do that. And if you're really nice, you're really feeling like you want to just put a little something in our cap, how about leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts?
We like them. We love them.
We love them, especially if they're nice and 5 stars. We'll read them on the show. We'll have a good time. We'll high five each other. It's great. And that's not all. We also have a guest today.
We do.
First time on our show, podcast guest. Today's guest is comedian and writer for Nickelodeon's Warped, The Late Show with Jimmy Fallon, producer on Wise and Next Problem Areas, co-host of the Yub Nub podcast, which I listen to, and now creator of Comedy Central's animated short Maurice On Mars. What's going on? It's my man Tim Barnes. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing good. I'm so happy to be here. One question though: you're married?
Yes. Yeah, we're married. Yep.
And you live in the same house?
Yes. Yeah.
And you're just in 2 separate rooms. I'm trying to figure out what's happening.
No. We're in the same room.
You're in the okay.
Yeah.
If I turn my camera, you can see Karen's over there.
Okay.
Right,
I'm just trying to figure out the logistics.
It's a very professional looking setup, But I mean, when I was in New York, we did have 2 or 3 months where we were in different places recording the podcast. But
well, I just love it because I don't know if I'm breaking the fourth wall for the people just listening to the podcast, but it's 2 different mic setups, and so that's what made me ask it. I was like,
okay.
Yeah. And then I was, my brain was going, am I somehow gaining some details that the listeners don't know about the state of your relationship?
The nerd motif is what really brings us all together here.
Yeah.
We got a lot of Star Wars, Mario stuff there.
Yes, we picked our own corner, so it's like I made my own background and he made his own background. Every now and then I feel like changing it. I'll change it up.
So Tim, it's our first time getting to virtually meet you, but I have listened to the Yub Nub podcast for a while. You, my coworker, homie Greg, y'all do this podcast together with a third person. What's the third guy's name?
His name's Jim Fagan. Yeah, he's a great comedy writer and producer. The most difficult thing I think for this podcast is that it's 2 black hosts, 1 white host, and it's a guessing game. Which is which? We all sound generally.
You know what's so funny about that is there's a level of woke that people get to where they're like, there's no such thing as sounding black or sounding white. And I'm like, yeah, but we all have phones. We've all had that awkward moment where we guessed the wrong thing or someone told us that shit. And it's okay. It's fine. But
it's a blessing and a curse being a black man with NPR voice. I just gotta.
It's great. It's great for when you need customer service.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Because that's the other thing. Every black person aspires to have a white voice. It's not that they want to have it 24/7, but there's certain situations where you're like, I gotta call the bank, and it sucks. When you if you try to just talk to them the way you would talk to a friend or whatever, you can immediately hear the customer service level go down. Down, but if you talk to them hi, my name's Roderick,
the reverse of that situation for me is I gotta call my cousin, and then I was like, I don't know, I can't switch it up. It's an issue. That's why I'm in therapy now, trying to figure it out.
It's a whole ordeal because particularly when you have a name like mine, Karen, everybody assumes that I'm white until I walk into the room because my name is a very generic name almost.
Yeah, that's the thing about Roderick too. Is it's another one of those resume names, which just leads to disappointment. you just get in the interview. It's like I really wish y'all had named me like LaQuintus or some shit.
Yeah.
So we just rip the band-aid off. I'm black. I'm coming in the room. Everyone, if you're gonna hire me, you're hiring a black person.
Yeah.
And we don't have to deal with this bullshit.
Otherwise, you get the surprise. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's the response you get because you're like, oh, so y'all thought y'all was a white woman.
All right. Oh, so Karen. Oh, okay, Karen. What are those Karen?
I love the idea that every black person has their given name and then a resume name. Like that
Yes.
is, yeah.
Yes, I would love that. I honestly, like, I would love like a dope like name that goes all the way back to like the motherland, because I like one, search algorithms is so much better. Like when I meet, like I'm jealous now when I meet somebody that has like a really unique name, because I'm like, oh man, I bet you can get the .com to that. I bet you had the only Instagram with that shit. Like, man, you lucked out. But you know, before I was all like, oh, what a great name, Roderick. I can always get a job. And now it's like, oh God, I should have. Now that it's all digital, I work for myself. I wish it was LaQuintus, man. That shit would be like,
you would stand out among the crew.
Yeah, there's no LaQuintus #2 on Instagram. There's just LaQuintus, you know. But Tim, how did you get your start in like comedy, man? Was it like on stage? Was it all the way back to school? How'd you get into it?
Yeah, I guess that is kind of a tough question to answer. It was on stage, but before that, I was always a pretty quiet kid and nerdy kid. I wouldn't by any stretch of the imagination say I was the funniest person in my family. I have like small nuclear family, huge extended family. My dad is one of 8 kids. All those kids have kids. My mom has this big extended family. They know how to crack each other up. They know how to do act outs. They know how to. And so with me being more of like internal sort of writerly type, I learned how to just, my skill comedy wise in a social setting, same skill in a writer's room, is knowing who the people who can extend a joke are and saying one small funny thing to them, knowing that they can take it like almost like a sports team. Like they can, yeah.
That's a big thing for skill set too. That's a thing for me is I'm more quiet with my family. My family is very much act out. They're all
loud, and I'm a part of that crew.
They're all like just a collection of the funniest people I know, you know, just in one room. And same thing where it's like I'll make like if they sit down and talk to me, then they're always like, oh man, you're so funny. But if it's just like a room full of people, I'm like, no, you guys do the dance.
Roderick is a fly on the wall. He's kind of always been like that. And I'm like the opposite. I like take all the energy. You know, there's a lot of energy in the room. I'm like, I'll be here for all the energy. And he's like, hey, that means the energy's not on me.
But I think that does help with like being able to write. Because as you said, you can like give somebody that alley-oop. And a lot of writing when it comes to like, you know, performance and act outs is kind of more of an alley-oop. Like it's not as strictly like I wrote this dialogue, now say the words. It's a lot of like, this is the idea, and then they kind of make it their own anyway.
Yeah, it's all about finding the right people. And I was like, I think before I started doing stand-up, it was in social settings at parties and stuff where I was always testing out the same thing. Cause like I'm bored by the build up to conversation, but I love it when you start diving into like, what's going to happen to religion on Mars? Like you start saying stuff like that. But the build up stuff is so boring to me. So I would play with like saying that like the same answer to like, where are you from? Which I feel like is such a loaded question depending on who's asking it. So I would just test stuff where I would say, I was born in a small town in African America, see if that gets a laugh, see how that can, you know, and that has always been a mainstay of my routine is that like as the introduction to who I am. So just like, I think that's how I developed a sort of conversational comedic style. And it took a while for me to really hone that and feel comfortable with that on stage and in the sense of like sort of allowing people to enter your world as opposed to just like projecting it as soon as you get on stage.
And how often were you getting on stage, or are you getting on stage? I guess in the pandemic, even
in the pandemic, it's not very often. I would say actually like a couple, like last week I had one of the worst sets of my life, but it was also, I love that feeling of having a bad set where it just like, I think it's because my life is so boring that just having anything happen Just the
Like,
rush of any emotion is exciting.
No one's laughing, and you're just in your head like, oh yeah, drama,
like a villain
finally.
in it. Yeah, like Darth Sidious.
Finally, I have something to talk about.
But I got into a good especially because I grew up in LA. South Central LA, wasn't allowed to go around outside a lot as a kid, and if I did, wasn't allowed to go around the block, that kind of thing. But I also didn't mind because I had enough going on with all the TV shows I was watching. And then in 2012, I moved to Chicago with a friend of mine, Ian Abramson, to focus on comedy. And it was like a little bit of sketch, but really, really zeroing in on stand-up. And I think I got to a point, like with Chicago comedy, it is a bit of, you can tune yourself into this sort of Game of Thrones energy, because it's not like the coastal cities where there's a lot of like media and stuff. So it really is just about like this feeling of proving that you are one of the funniest people in this city. That's kind of the vibe. And it's also hyper segregated. So there's different types of comedy you can do in different locations. And I think I got to a pretty good point there where I felt good. Like I was a regular at the Laugh Factory and that kind of thing. But I also don't feel like I a lot of people have their sort of like their crew of comedians that they started out with. I kind of had that, but I kind of just like, I was the guy, I went into the open mic, did as best as I could, went to a show, hopefully killed, and then hung out a little bit, but then really just went back home. It's just the same way I was throughout my whole life. Just like, as a kid,
you were still staying inside. Like I was thinking about that too. Like, because that's one thing about being a nerdy kid as a nerdy kid that grew up around Black people in a Black neighborhood. For me, staying inside was safety.
Mm-hmm.
But also I like that shit. Like it was like, I still remember me and my brother would get punished for doing something. And like, go to your room, and I'd be like in the room reading my brother would be pissed. Like, he's like, man, why the fuck are you okay with this? And I'm just like,
when you're the nerdy introverted kid, you kind of find the loophole of life, because there is no such thing as punishment. There is no
like, my parents are like, go to your room. I'm like, cool, because they just landed to Mars anyway, and I need to find out what happened to the Queen.
I think I was such a boring kid. It was almost like my parents were begging me to go outside and get into some sort of trouble, just so they had something to talk about with their friends. Sure.
I remember my dad giving me, he gave me and my brother, like, my dad's a good dad, and gave us like the sex talk. It was a very responsible, cool talk. Like it was anti every stereotype you hear about the sex talk. Like it wasn't all that. But the thing is, he was giving it to a kid that did not care less. I think he started to be concerned, where he's just like,
are you okay?
If you're gay, that's fine too. You need me to give you a different sex talk. I'm like, no, it's not. No, I just don't. I like Transformers a lot. I just don't know why we're even talking about this, but sure.
I guess.
Yeah. I don't know why I would ever be interested in these things, but sure. Yeah. I have a lot of sex. Yeah. So great.
I think there's like a generation of people who are so used to like going out to get in trouble being the default that they don't know what it means to not even seek that. Like my grandpa grew up in Louisiana. He has a more exciting nightlife than I do. He does not understand the concept of me just going to a friend's house to watch TV and that's it. Yeah. He doesn't understand.
Honestly, like those, I remember back, maybe like this had to be like 15 years ago, maybe longer. But like that was a big thing with the people I hung out with, because they go like, oh man, we're gonna go to the game, we're gonna get drunk or whatever. I'm like, I don't want to do that. And then they be like, yeah, so we're gonna watch Deadwood. I'm like, yo, I'm there. Let's go. I'll be there at 8:45. I'm bringing the snacks. Like it was a big deal. I remember like hanging out and playing like NFL 2K because they finally got Xboxes and shit. I was like, let's go. Like those are my big nights.
Yeah, did we call it Xbox Malcolm X Day?
Oh yeah, Malcolm Xbox Day.
Yes,
We hosted that at our house in
Yes.
February one year. Played Gears of War with all our friends.
For hours on end.
Yeah, so like
Wow.
that kind of stuff was like what I was into, and I think that's as a kid, that's why I really didn't. I avoided a lot of pitfalls because I wasn't cool enough to get invited to too much trouble stuff. Right? It's like, oh, we're gonna do drugs. Don't invite, right? Like, why would waste drugs?
He's a nerd. He's not gonna use it.
Yeah, but then also like it helped because I wrote and I was artistic. I drew. I did all this stuff in high school. Just I was in creative writing, all that stuff, and I think it put me on the path to be a creative. So you moved to Chicago after growing up in LA. And where are you at now?
I'm in New York. Yeah, in Brooklyn.
Okay. That seems completing the set. That seems.
I know. Yeah. Just see, still Game of Thronesing it. You know, I'm trying to, trying to get my resume and all my locations airtight. What do I like better? Well, I say is no matter where I go, I stay inside most of the time anyway. So I'm not locationally like. That's why I don't really understand sports. Like I have no real attachment to a team for any reason. Every location has something to be excited about, and like everything's cool. Like I don't.
It was hard. It was hard for people hearing when I went to New York and I was working. It was hard for them to understand that I wasn't doing stuff. They couldn't understand. You're in New York. What have you done? I was like, well, I went to work, then I went back to the crib, played some video games, made a podcast, and I went to work. Like. This is what I be doing in Charlotte. This is what I got to be doing in New York. Like I don't know why y'all think I'm gonna be out till 3 a.m. Nothing changed for me.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Same routine.
But I think I do like New York out of all the cities because there's a good mix. There's media work, writing work that can be done out here, and compared to LA, there is just a natural friction of like bumping into people. Doing anything that I think is like what I learned helped me in Chicago, even because in a city like this, you're forced to interact with people. So if you are an introvert, no matter what, you're still going to bump into someone who knows someone who knows someone. It's like forcing myself to be in these interactions. But in LA, you really have to drive places with intention to be a part of something. And that's not something I'm really good at. It's hard to psych myself up to drive, an hour to a social event. Out of you. Yeah, I know.
It's easier when it's more spontaneous, at least for me, as well. So then, did you go to like college? And did you major in anything that like got you into this game?
I went to Santa Barbara City College for 2 years, focused on film. And then I quit. I don't know if it even counts as quitting when it's City College, but I
just stopped going.
I stopped going.
Them loans said
the bill still came.
I had, but it was great. Like I met a lot of great people. Filmmaking was always, I think, before I knew that I wanted to focus on comedy, my first passion. And I think it was just at that sort of edge of where we are now, where it's like you need film school to meet the right people to really hone your skills, but all of the access is like in your pocket now. So nothing, like literally nothing is stopping you from making a movie. And this was just at that sort of transition point of that, like being the norm as much as it is now. And so I think that was kind of what I realized at that moment. And then I moved back with my parents. We lived in Riverside at that time, and I was working at a movie theater. And it was in that period where I started doing stand-up a bit because a couple friends of mine who were in a band, they knew that I was interested in stand-up, so they asked me to open for one of their shows in LA. So I started going to like music open mics, being the only comedian, that kind of thing, before I opened for that, and that went pretty well. And that was kind of it.
Is it weird opening for music, like opening for something that's not gonna be, you know what I'm saying? Because like I know comedically, it's probably like, it's probably Yeah, I'm doing comedy. Next guy's gonna be
Yeah.
doing comedy. Person before me is doing comedy.
Mhm.
What's it like opening for music? You have to be like, you guys ready to fucking rock?
It wasn't that weird. It was like very tuned in. Like the type of band this was tuned into the type of comedy I was doing, and like I knew probably like 50% of the people at the show. So that was already its own type of anxiety around it. But it went pretty well, and I'm just trying to not dive into the story where I had to break up a blowjob during one of the movies at the theater.
You can dive into that. That's fine. We were just talking about Roy Wood Jr. was on the show the other day, and he was just talking about there's no more sex in the theaters. we was talking about how like in the pandemic, we try to go to the movie theater in off hours. So like we'll try to slide into like a 3 p.m. show as opposed to like a 8 p.m. show because that's gonna be full or whatever. And so he was like, yeah, but if you go to those 3 p.m. shows, this when people are in there fucking. I was like, surprisingly, Roy, no one's fucking anymore. I don't know what happened, but our generation was the last finger bang generation, I think.
Yeah.
The kids now
they got FaceTime and shit. They was like, what? No,
there's some different shit now, man.
We got TikTok.
So what happened with this story?
So do you remember there was a 3D owl movie called Guardians of the Gahul or something?
Yeah, Guardians of the Gahul.
Yeah. So I was tearing tickets, and this was like I feel like it was in the middle of the week, like was it a matinee screening? And I worked at this theater that was like right across the street from UC Riverside, and the only two groups of people that went into this theater, it was a nuclear family, a mom, a dad, and a little kid, and a college couple. And movie starts about 20 minutes in. I get a tap on my shoulder. It's the mom. She's complaining about a sound she's hearing, and I probably just like, maybe it's just the speakers. Maybe we'll go. And she says, no, it's a slurping sound, and said it in a way where it was like, oh, okay. I go to
your kids with the slurping sound.
My manager
who's slurping? Can I have the slurping? No, baby.
Not that kind of slurping.
I go to the manager. The manager says you just got to go in there and make it stop. So I walk in. This was a movie that was all about the full 3D experience, right? So everyone's wearing 3D glasses. I go in. I see that there's the nuclear family sitting. The mom's angry, arms crossed. About 4 rows behind them, at the very end of the very back of the theater, is the couple. Or what I think is the couple, because all I see is a guy leaned back with his 3D glasses on, really getting a full 3-dimensional experience of this owl movie.
He was in the 4D before we had 4DX. He was in 4DXXX.
So I walk up slowly. Another head pops up, and they were so embarrassed. And then I think the mom really just wanted an opportunity to officially call them out so that she could go in on them. And if you want the racial breakdown of this is that it was a black family and white college students. So if that gives you any,
that's an underrated juxtaposition, because I think a lot of people, when they think of racism and race, they think of like it's always bad when like the white people are coming down on the black people. But when black people have the rare chance to really go in on some white people for being nasty, like that is a big pastime of black people. It's like finding a nasty white person where it's like, whether it just be your shoes on the dash of your car, or fucking like not, the Lord forbid we find out you don't wash your legs in the shower. Like that shit that shit is forever. So like I know she was like, let's go.
Yeah. And then I'll never, I don't think that this couple had, the couple could have gone through the emergency exit, but instead they did a walk of shame through the lobby when all of my coworkers knew what was just happening. And what I try to figure out now is who sat where first. It doesn't make total sense to me that the couple sat all the way in the back first and then this family decided to sit only 4 rows ahead of them.
Right. Yeah. Oh, let's go. I mean, because I feel like those are the blowjob seats in the theater.
Yeah.
In the back in the corner. Or
so they must have been all set, and then we're like, oh, look, this family's just gonna.
Right.
We came here specifically for this task.
Yeah. Because that's the other thing. I guarantee you they weren't big Guardians of the Gahoo fans.
Guarantee.
Like they were just going in
anything.
Whichever theater had the showing at Blowjob O'Clock was the one they were going to go in. So I'm sure he was just like, oh, here we go. It is like, oh, this family's coming in, which is the worst. Because like that's the other thing.
You're like, ain't y'all got school?
Yeah, how dare you come see this kid's owl movie?
Right. Like it's really on the blowjob couple because like if you would have went and saw like say Super Troopers or something, I feel like
nobody would have been in that bitch.
I feel like well, even if people would have been in there, there's like this whole like, of course someone's gonna get blown in Super Troopers.
It's gonna be adults.
Yeah, like that. This is on me. Like I'm for it. I should move 2 rows down. And I won't hear the slurping, or even better, like the slurpers and accoutrement, like it's an added.
I love these questions in here. How loud was the slurping? I don't know if I didn't hear the slurping when I got in. Yeah. Okay, but it was loud enough.
I imagine the grapefruit lady. Y'all remember the grapefruit lady? that's what I imagine was happening. Because I mean. There's also like a certain level of slurping where you would be like, it's inconvenient, but not the end of the world. But if it was like so loud, you had to stop. Like this woman, I don't know if y'all have ever seen this video, but she's teaching you how to grapefruit your man.
That's like you said you were gonna do.
I feel like that's enough for me to go get an usher.
This TED Talk level of.
I think I might have to get an usher. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was like, and honestly, like I didn't even know those kind of. This sounds like it was a while ago. I didn't think those kind of blowjobs that were loud came into style until like the late 2000s. Like,
and that's something I haven't thought about too. Was the mom's experience? Oh yeah. But the mom's experience watching this movie, it's almost like a horror movie, and you hear this sound, you're like, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Because her first thought, this black woman's first thought was, I know I'm not hearing what I think I'm hearing.
Right. So you ignore it probably the first few times.
Like, you know how mad she had to be to go to the usher? Because like the whole process you gotta think about too is that her husband definitely was like, girl, go ahead and just watch the movie. Like, so she got that extra level of angst from him being.
You got the kids asking the questions, what mommy? So then it starts like this whole other thing.
Right. He probably rolled his eyes when she got, oh, here she go. Bust the people for getting blowjobs again.
And then it's the thing like, why don't we just move closer to the screen? No.
Exactly.
The mom's like, it's the principle.
It's the principle. We paid for this seat. You like, oh God, yes, just do it. Just do it.
Right. We could have moved 3 rows down, but no.
It's like whenever Karen decides like that food, I didn't get the food that I ordered or something, right?
Oh and I'll be on it.
And I try to be like cool about it, like, it's all good. I can eat this with blue cheese instead of ranch.
No, that's not what you ordered.
And I'm like, okay, all right, she's doing the thing. I'm just gonna shut the fuck up. And
I'm like, nope, that's not what you ordered.
Enjoy my ranch. Hope they don't spit in it, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, so that was that like as you were still doing stand-up and stuff that you were working at this theater, or you were back home and just working at the theater?
That was like in that transition. Like I was working at that theater before I started doing stand-up, and I was still working at that theater when I had started doing stand-up. At that moment, maybe that was the moment that was like, I gotta get out of
I get out of blowjob town. It's time to go.
That is definitely a change. That is like in the montage of your life. That is the scene in your autobiography movie. Where it's like, and that's the day he realized he needed to change his life.
The blowjob day, it changed everything.
Yeah, it's like I was cruising along, and the next thing you know, people getting blown at my job, and I got to break it up. Like I remember when I worked at the Y part-time, the YMCA. And they would have this women's Zumba class, and all I was a gym monitor. So basically, I helped run the list for basketball. make sure people, run the clock, that kind of stuff. Make sure people play by the rules. And I got a free membership, which is why I did it, because I just played basketball for free, basically. I was like, cool, this is dope. Yep, I was already going to do all this stuff. But some days they'd be like, well, on like Tuesday and Thursday, women have a Zumba class, and we need you to come in and be like a monitor for the class. And I'm like, what? They already have an instructor? And they were like, no. Dudes will come and hang out by the window, the glass, and just watch these women. Some will even come in and sit down on the bench and not even work out, just stare at these women. Normally these are like moms and stuff. It's very weird. It's very weird. And so I remember having to go and be that guy, like, hey man, so ladies are a little uncomfortable with you sitting here, and you can either participate in the class or you have to keep it moving. They're like, what? And they all do the like, are we not a nation of laws? Like they all turn
no, sir.
They turn to Roman senators and shit all of a sudden, man. And I'm like, bro, just you're looking at butts. Just please, for the love of God, move on. And
it's really anytime there's a woman behind glass, it seems like people see that as an open opportunity. There's a Taco Bell. There's a Taco Bell near me where they have, it makes no sense. There's like a Chipotle setup where you can see all the employees making your Taco Bell. All the employees are usually women here, and I cannot tell you how often I go there.
Just some creepy dude. Standing outside like touching the glass like a prison movie. And then
you're like, oh,
a couple times I had to go get the police officer, which is like crazy. Like, but that's the level of entitlement, because it'd be like, hey man, I already warned you once, but like, can you please? They're saying that you need to move out, and this is my job, and it's embarrassing for me to have to fucking tell you this, because I would think a grown man would know better, but okay, you don't. Can you just please move outside or keep moving? I pay my membership. I don't have to do. All right. Well, I'll just see what the officer says. Like, and now you got a cop telling somebody just to stop looking at butts. It was the craziest thing. And I just remember thinking, like, man, I don't know that the money's worth it. Maybe I should pay to play basketball. This shit is embarrassing to me at this point. And they love me up there, like, because I would actually do the job, and like afterwards, all the women in the class would be like, "Thank you so much. You were doing such a good job. These other guys come here and they don't kick anyone out, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know. This just fucking sucks."
Yes, because the thing about it, at one period of time, they would just put black. Whenever they had the class, they would actually put just black, like plastic or paper over the door, so the dudes couldn't actually sit there and stare. I remember one time it was similar. I was in a Zumba class, and because the way this class goes, you have the bottom, it's 2 levels. So you have the bottom level where the women will be like on the floor, and then you have a level above us where it'd be like exercise equipment and like the thing you walk around and all that stuff. So what was happening, which I didn't see it, but it was a dude on the upper level that was actually up there with binoculars on. I guess some of the women found out he was doing that and went and told the instructor. So literally the instructor had to stop the entire class. It was like, we got to stop the class now. And the officers had to come and basically escort him away because he was just determined. He was like, dude, you got binoculars on. And let me tell you this. And what's so weird is that if you participated in the class, you could stare at all the ass you want. I don't think they understand. Like, if we're doing yoga, whatever we're doing, if you would just participate in the class, you could get a whole eye full and nobody would have a problem because you're participating. The problem is when you're not participating and you just want to stare.
Well, see, the thing is, if you participate, Karen, well, then you're gay. Okay, that's how they think. Those dudes are very much like hetero, whatever. So it's like, I don't want to do no gay Zumba shit. I just want to buy binoculars and stare at ladies. Like no, that is so weird. But
and then if I could just go in there and do the Rockaware, then that'd be fine. But
there would be occasionally there would be like super cool, chill kids, like normally they'd be younger dudes who would just be like, "Oh, I can do the class," because it's low key. There was like there's 2 groups. There's the the weirdos that were normally older dudes that wanted to stare at women.
Yes, the older dudes.
But there were young people that wanted to be like, is it okay if I go in a room full of women and I want to do the classes? And it'd be like, yeah, y'all can go do the class. And they're like, oh, I don't got to sign up or nothing. It's like, nah. No. And they be up in there getting it to the motherfucking like Beyonce and shit.
They do. And we be having a ball because that's the thing. You want the women to feel safe. The creeps don't make you feel safe.
Yeah. But yeah, it's the YMCA Christian, and they were still doing that. So blowjob day happens, and you're like, I gotta change my life. I gotta get out of here. What's the next steps to like how'd you get out of that situation?
So my friend Ian and I, we kind of hatched this plan to move to Chicago. I had saved maybe just about $3,000. We flew there, no game plan. We lucked into just through the magic of Craigslist finding some places in time for us when we got there. I think my first job was at the California Pizza Kitchen in downtown Chicago as a host. So that was my, California Pizza Kitchen host by day, stand-up comic by night, that kind of thing.
Did you put did you have to did you break up blowjobs on your resume? Was that a skill? They're like, oh, you know what? That happens a lot here. You'd be surprised.
You're hired. It's pizza. You're hired. You should be surprised what people do for a slice of pizza.
Yeah. People don't hosts at restaurants. That's a tough job. They're basically politicians. They got to keep all the servers happy.
And they don't get tips, even though they do get minimum wage and a lot. Yeah. So for at least in North Carolina, I know I was getting $2.15 as a waiter, but then tips, hopefully you make enough tips to make up to minimum wage at minimum. Yeah. And then the host gets minimum wage, if not more, but they deal with so much shit.
Yeah, managers.
Any waiter that's not happy, any customer is not happy. It's just come do this, come change this. You got to do everything.
Almost like a runner.
Yeah, even for the to-go food, they used to have to put all the to-go food together. They don't get a tip on that. It was such a weird type of job to have.
Yeah, and to casually take someone to a seat that no one wants. That's the toughest part. Casually walking a couple to a seat right next to the bathroom, or and just walking away fast enough before they can process they don't want to sit there.
Okay, wait a minute, real quick. Bye.
And the thing, because me and Roger both works at a restaurant, and maybe this is just me. One thing that irks me, if we go into a restaurant and it's absolutely positively empty, it might be 3 tables in there. Why do you set me beside another table? And I will tell them, can you sit me anywhere else? They look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, this whole big ass restaurant, and you plop us right beside the other couple. Come on now.
Yeah, it's big. It's big, like using a urinal next to somebody's energy.
Right. It's I want to be able to talk and breathe. And one thing about restaurants too, and I know I feel bad for the hostesses. Restaurants be trying to save space. They probably have gotten better with coronavirus. But at one period of time, they used to make the places so tight that if you bend your elbow, you were bumping on somebody. You couldn't have a full conversation. I was like, who made these tables so close together that if I stand up, my butt is bumping into their heads?
Yeah.
So you're doing stand up, and is this when you start getting into writing and submitting packets and stuff like that? How did you learn about that?
Yeah. I'm gonna try and fast forward through my path because it's long and winding. But
you've been working for a minute. I looked on your IMDb, at least since 2012. That's a hell of a history, man. That's at least 10 years in the game.
Yeah. The first there's so. I was doing a lot of stand up. What I knew about Chicago at the time was improv stand up and WBEZ. I was listening to the stuff like This American Life. So I was excited to and I was younger, so I was excited to have this feeling of going out into the world, trying to ingrain myself in a new city, trying to be it almost sounds like I was trying to be the comedy Barack Obama, like what Barack Obama did when he got to Chicago. I'm just trying to grassroots. And that's kind of what I did. I made a lot of friends, and I made just a lot of amazing connections with people who were just like are really a part of Chicago. And I ended up like early on there, someone recommended that I like start volunteering as a way to like feel involved with the world of Chicago. And also, when you're volunteering, you often get a lot of free food for these events you're volunteering at. So that was also a win-win. So I started volunteering, doing stand-up. My volunteering kind of led me to start volunteering for the WBEZ radio station. And so that coincided into a sort of point that kind of connects to everything, where there's this comedian, Brian Babylon, who is from Chicago. He's a frequent guest on Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. And he had he co-hosted a morning radio show at this radio station called Vocalo. That is the sister station to WBEZ. And so he would always see me at volunteering at public radio events, but then also always see me at these comedy shows. To the point that one day he just walked up to me and was like, "Who the hell are you? Like, are you stalking me?" That kind of thing. I wasn't, but I just kind of, I was just telling him like, "Oh, these are my interests." And that's why and so he really got me my first like real entry into the world of media. He like very quickly made it so that I could be an intern and for his radio show. And so that was a big step. I remember at that time I was working at a Dunkin' Donuts, and I was so excited to have this sort of official path open up that I quit my job at the Dunkin' Donuts for this unpaid internship. I really have blacked out in terms of like how I survived in that period, but everything from then on kind of gave me this like path of like doing stand up, but then also doing behind the scenes, like
if you had been like getting shit about your voice up until that point, it's also like, well, this is the one area where it's like, that's a good NPR voice. You know what I mean? Like it's immediately like, well, listen, I don't know what they be saying around Inglewood, but fuck that shit. We got to figure a way to get you on the mic.
Yes, and it got to be more than welcome to Dunkin' Donuts.
And so ultimately it was just like I had that internship that led to a podcast internship at WBEZ, and this podcast that I had started just like as an experiment. I was editing it in my friend's basement because he had the only like computer that wouldn't crash after 15 seconds. Right. I had been working on making that. It was this podcast called It's All True. The head of the podcast department at WBEZ, like that was a part of my interview for that internship. He liked it. And so there was this point where that podcast was a part of the WBEZ podcast network. And so I had this, like, from that internship, this WBEZ email, and I would try and like get like comedians who were coming in town to be on it. So I interviewed Wyatt Cenac in Chicago. I interviewed Hari Kondabolu in Chicago. I interviewed people like Eddie Izzard through this like weird connection of that. And by the time I came to New York, some of those connections from just like recording those podcast episodes came in handy, because one of my early podcast producing jobs in New York was producing this part of season 2 of this podcast called Politically Reactive that W. Kamau Bell and Hari Kondabolu co-host. And so Hari remembered me from Chicago and recommended me for this job. So that was great. And then when there was that, when Wyatt Cenac was starting his HBO show, I think, a part of him already knowing me from this random interview in Chicago a couple years prior also helped. And so it's just been a series of weird connections like that. And I used to feel very caught in between, like this feeling of like, oh, none of the stand-up comedians really think of me as a stand-up. And then also like, I'm a producer, but not really a producer. Like I was always like like halfway in and out of these two worlds. But as soon as I really started, I got my first staff writing job and kind of have kept writing in television. All those like skills you get from video editing, audio editing, having to give specific notes to people, producing talent, comes in handy when you're writing for a late night show. Like it's not just being funny. It's a lot of like kind of like boring basic work very often, and I had gotten used to that, and so now I'm like very happy that I've had the path that I did. But going through it, I was like,
also the fact that they thought of you favorably and were like, oh, he would be good for this, is a skill in itself. You know what I mean? Because like there's a, I don't know, and especially in entertainment, there's this idea of like, well, some people are so good you just have to tolerate that they're a piece of shit. Like, and it's like, I guess there's people that believe that, but for me, I know that if I was starting something, I'm not gonna pick the people that were assholes but so talented. I'm gonna be like, no, I want to work with people and have a fun time because I'm gonna be here all day.
Right.
And I think, you know, it helps that people, you know, thought of you and went, oh yeah, Tim, let's get him on here.
Yeah. It's just so funny how this industry works too. Like when I think about certain things, like early on to me moving to New York, I think Z-Way reached out to me like, do you want to co-host a stand-up show? And now I think about that, like we used to co-host this like stand-up show, and it's like insane how much her career has skyrocketed. And it's like beautiful to see. So it's all about just like connections, and I don't know, I feel like I'm just saying, you know, random words at this point, but it's
but no, I mean it's like when people ask us about advice for podcasting, and we have to be like, all right, so I'm gonna tell you something you already know. Like I'm not like it might be something you don't want.
Magical here.
Yeah, more than likely you don't want to do it,
and you don't want to, or you don't want to do it.
Yeah, you probably don't want to hear to do it, but this is the thing. It's the advice you already know, and then I also think like in the entertainment game, it's healthy, but it's probably hard for people to be able to root for other people because it's pitched as a meritocracy, which is not. There's also like a scarcity thing because there's only so many opportunities at so many places, even though opportunities have really opened up a lot because everyone
their own now.
People can do more stuff on their own, but also there's just like a ton of competition with all these streaming services and shit. Like they're just buying up all the content. They might not be as committed as they used to be to other stuff, but like they'll give you a shot when they used to just be like, man, fuck you. We don't like come back with a famous person. Now they're like, listen, we got a fourth quarter expenditures are down. You know, they just buy up a bunch of shit. But it is, I think it's healthy to be able to like see somebody have success and be like, yo, that's dope for her. As opposed to like, because I think there's a ton of comedians that would have been like, but why wasn't it me? I could have been Z-Way. I could say rude things to people.
I think a lot of people have what is it, like middle child syndrome with the industry, and I've never understood that. Like, I don't know. That's always been like the sort of scary part of it to me, anyway. Like the schmoozing and trying to get a booker to like you, and then trying to get a network exec to like you in a particular way. I try to avoid thinking about that, sometimes to my detriment, maybe, because I really try to, as an equalizing tactic, not know what people do ever. So I try and treat people well with that, without ever knowing what anyone does. I try and equally treat everyone very well because I have no idea.
You never know, right?
You never know.
Yeah, and
but having that extra detail will just make me so anxious and paranoid. So I just don't want to know what you do.
The thing for me that I think is interesting is because I want to know what everyone does, right? the way I look at it is, and it's not even for schmoozing, right? One, because I'm just trying to learn, to be honest. Like I don't have enough experience to be like, I got it. Like I really be like, so what do you do? And I'll sit down and talk to anybody about what they do. But the funniest part is it's the people that people overlook that can fuck it all up. Like it's like an executive producer, somebody might decide if you get a season 2, which is obviously a major thing. Or like whoever the executive is over at the company, like they decide if they're gonna pick you up and all that. That matters. But like a bad line producer fucks everything. Like you won't have to worry about it getting to a decision. You know what I'm saying? If you just got motherfuckers that the cameraman is shit. Like you just fuck.
Yeah.
You fuck from jump.
A bad PA, all of a sudden, shit don't get done.
Yeah, man. I was talking
to be the people that lead up to that exec. Like if the exec's assistant, you're mean to them or something, they're right next to that person's ear. They can say
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's like I just treat everybody nice as a baseline, just because of that. But like I at the same time I know you're right that it may have even hurt opportunities because I'm not schmoozing. like you know what I'm saying? Like an executive doesn't come in and I'm like, oh, what's up, Jan? What you doing over here? Like I'm just like, that's Jan.
Yeah.
That I have
I'm kind of the same way because I really hate that shift in a room where you're just comedians hanging out and then an important person walks in and you can feel it's like the one ring of power in the Lord of the Rings. You can feel all the comics turn into a ring wraith. There
was a thing where we were writing a sketch and we didn't get like notes on the sketch, but we got like suggestions and it was like, yo, this person kind of high up with like they want to see if y'all can work these jokes in. And like we're racking our brains like, oh, I mean, I guess we could say it this way, or I mean, if this is important. And then we get to the end of the process and our sketch is like a little too long. So we got to cut some stuff. And like we're just going around circles and finally I just look at Tommy like, we just got to cut them jokes, man. like look, our shit hotter than that. And like if they're mad at us about that, then that's like they're mad at us for doing our job, but our job is to give them the hottest shit possible. And then when we gave it to them, they were like, oh no, this is perfect. Like it's fine. They weren't even that pressed about if y'all use it or not. And I'm so glad because I was in my head about like this person has a big name, you got to put it in there. And they're like, no, man, if it's what happens is what's best is if we have a good show.
Right.
Yeah. So how'd you go from there to getting on Fallon, like writing for Fallon?
Yeah. In New York was really like I got a manager when I was in New York and I started writing a bunch of packets. I think the path to Fallon was, so I was a web producer in season 1 of Wyatt's and Axe show. And then the next job for me was as a digital writer at Comedy Central. So I was writing, and this was like the big step for me because I think what they essentially wanted was a hybrid person, someone who could write but also edit and produce and stuff like that. But when I interviewed for this and, I had sent some stuff I had written before and all that, I really suggested that all I can do is write. Like, I don't know how to edit audio. I don't that's kind of what I was presenting. And so I got hired as just a digital writer, which was a huge step for me because I was like, I want to move into writing, especially writing for television. And if I keep all of this production stuff on my resume, it's going to be a long journey for me to get there. So when I got to Comedy Central, I was just a writer, and I was so grateful that I was in this cubicle that just had a Dell computer that didn't have any software. Literally all I could do on this thing was write. And I wrote more than I needed to. I wrote more than could possibly be produced. And so I was just very excited to have things that I could say that I pitched and wrote getting produced and going on to Comedy Central's YouTube, an official comedy brand and stuff like that. So, and I think I was there for about like a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And when my manager heard about this, the reboot of All That was looking for writers, it was incredibly helpful to one, have this like sort of path that I had of like being a web producer for an HBO show, now being a digital writer at Comedy Central, and then being able to send a bunch of produced comedy sketches that I had written so that it's just a click of a button to watch this and be like, oh yeah, let's give this guy an interview. It was just a phone interview. I had gone through cycles of this before, just like doing an interview, nothing happens. You write a packet, nothing happens. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I thought that was like one of the best conversations I'd ever had in an interview. And I was lucky that they wanted to bring me on, and I, had to a week or so after that, had to fly from New York to LA to write for All That, which is a sketch show that like I loved when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And was a
Nickelodeon.
I know, yeah, it was a dream. Yeah. And so yeah, I'm honored that All That is my first official TV writing credit. And
yeah. Now, did this mean that you had to join the Writers Guild and all that stuff? Like, was the digital stuff Writers Guild stuff, or was it like this was your first like actual Writers Guild job?
This was my first Writers Guild job. Yeah, the digital stuff wasn't, and and so yeah, I was there for 6 months. I knew that I wanted to stay in New York, so I was like, "Can we talk? Can we find anything in New York?" I don't know exactly, but I know that at some point my manager had set up just like a meeting with me and some of the producers at the Tonight Show, and that meeting was in LA, right. And it went well. It actually went in a way. I was like, I don't know. I mean, I'm 30. I must have been 30 then, and you see how I am. You see how I talk, and I seem like an old man trapped in a younger person's body. And I was just like, the Tonight Show seems very youthful and having fun. So I didn't know if I presented a youthful, whatever it feels. Glow. Yeah. But it was the same thing. I think it was like having seen some sketches I had made, knowing that I've been writing sketch at All That. And I don't know if they looked at some of my old packets or not, but they brought me on. And this was right before the pandemic. This was before anyone like was talking too much about the coronavirus. Right. And so I knew that I was still at All That, and I was going to go to New York and start writing for the Tonight Show as soon as that season wrapped. And then I was still writing at All That when like the day that everyone, like, it was real all of a sudden in America. And everyone, like, I remember we were writing a sketch and like in the room, like group writing a sketch, and like every 5 seconds we were getting texts and like these like rumors, and like this rumor that New York's going to go in lockdown and they're not going to let anybody in or out. And I was like, well, my next job is in New York. My girlfriend's in New York. I don't know how bad this pandemic's going to be. Like, maybe like the Tonight Show's, I'm going to be the only person in like with my parents and my family working. Like, maybe I need to go to New York so I can make enough money to send to my parents. Like, I have no idea what this reality is. So that night, I flew back to New York that day because no one knew what the state of anything was. And then so I started writing for the Tonight Show when it was in Jimmy's house, and then I worked there for a year and a half, all from my apartment. Never set foot in 30 Rock for the show. Never met Jimmy in person, even though I've been in sketches with him. Never met, like 98% of my coworkers. It was a very Twilight Zone late night experience.
Wow. Everybody in boxes like the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, everybody went remote, man. And it is an interesting time to be going remote and not being able to see people and stuff. And then like, what is the working, like, what's the flow like for a late night show? Like, how much are you required to write every day, or is it an everyday thing?
It's an everyday thing. It's I feel like the Tonight Show, more than every other late night show, has to be the most hectic because like Colbert is mainly just interviewing people. There's not a bunch of games for every guest or anything like that.
Right.
But for the Tonight Show, it's like constantly specific things. So you're pitching ideas for
well, not just that, but like Jimmy Fallon is like a variety show. Like Tim is saying, like, Colbert is gonna be like an interview, maybe a musical act, etc. This shit is like Jimmy Fallon would be like, all right, guys, bring out the water guns. We're gonna play. And you're like, what the fuck kind of what is happening?
What is happening here?
It's a lot. And so it's basically it's like split between monologue writers and sketch writers. I was a sketch writer, and sketch writing is like for the Tonight Show, it's like writing, but also it almost was like 50-50 writing and producing. So you either like if you pitch something that that gets the green light to go on the show, you're in charge of making sure that everything happens, or sometimes like something will get handed to you and you're in charge of it. So it's like my favorite example is I had there was always, you know, a document where you're like pitching ideas for a guest and there's like cutoff times, and I was like, this is like, I was like, right in like a minute I had to write this before the cutoff time, an idea for a game. Because Seth Rogen had that pickle movie coming out. I think it's called like an American Pickle. So I was like, okay, Seth Rogen, pickles, Jimmy, game. They play a game called the Pickle Juice Challenge. They ask each other pickle-related trivia, and then whoever gets it wrong has to take a shot of pickle juice. And I wrote this as like, this is just like, just, you know, that's always when the best ideas come though at the last second. But,
absolutely.
It got picked. It got picked.
Yeah.
So here I am, this idea that I wrote on a whim. Like, okay, now I am producing the Pickle Juice Challenge. I have to write pickle trivia. I have to talk to the graphics people about what the pickle points are going to look like. This is still when it like the, you know, it was on Zoom, but at the studio at this point. So figuring out all the logistics of that. You have to figure out, we have to talk to some production people about how we're going to ship a jar of pickles to Seth Rogen so that he like it's stuff like that. Which and all for my apartment, by the way. So that's like it was like it was, and then they play the game, but there's not a studio audience there. So at the end, you're like, I did all this work so that 2 people could have fun. Drinking pickle juice.
Because like at that when there's no audience, you're like, I hope it's funny. You know what I mean?
Like, I hope they had fun. Like, I think our first episode of Game Theory, we had no studio audience, and I mean I wrote a lot of that episode, and I was so proud of it, and you know my friends and stuff were like, oh, I watched it, it's great. But then when we had a studio audience, when we like, because as we were doing the show, we started knowing how to do a show, and so like 5-6 episodes in, I remember Bo came and was like, dude, can you imagine if we knew what we were doing week 1? Like this shit was like, I was like, man, the audience would have killed that Duke sketch, would have killed. And it was like in hindsight, you know, and in the pandemic, you have to make decisions like that. Like, you know, it's funny to us in the room, it's funny to us as writers, it's funny to the host possibly. And then you're involved in Seth Rogen. So now you got like, it's kind of a wild card. Hopefully he's gonna be good. And those are like proud moments. I know we wrote a sketch where it was the Street Masters or whatever. It was like people playing golf in the streets. And
that was good.
Me and Sydney, like they just kind of presented this like rough outline of like this kind of what we want to think this, how to think the sketch would go. And then we were both like in the room with just like 15 minutes, like, nah, we do this and then we change this, and then all right, we got this will be a good idea. And you know, we were cracking it, like real tears coming out of our, we're like, oh, this is funny. And then we hand it in, and there's this moment of like, I hope they think it's funny, you know?
Yeah.
And when you have like a host that, you know, when you have producers, all this stuff, it's like you hand it into somebody, they don't it doesn't matter if they think it's funny. So like they're like, oh, that's good, cool, thanks, man, and we'll see what they think. And then they go film it and stuff. And that was like, I think the first time I got to write like a sketch, and it was like, they loved it. Oh God, oh my God, it was so funny. And I'm like, all right, well, we'll see in the edit. They didn't change anything. Like they just killed it. So yeah, and then someone in the chat is asking you, what does producing actually mean?
That is a great question. I feel like that's $1 million question. No one really, it means different things and different, like sometimes a producer for a film is the person like actually like funding it, like with the money, but it's really about managing. It's really, you know, being a general manager, basically. Like it's managing the money, making sure you stay on budget, managing the talent. And it's different in like different specific things, but generally producing is a producer is the person in between the talent and whatever network or studio, making sure that both are happy, but more so probably the network.
It was interesting because you know, you get introduced to different people, and like there could be like 5 executive producers. That could be
Yeah.
like there's like all kinds of stuff. The showrunner, the this, the that.
Yeah.
And
What executive producer means, I think that is like that could kind of mean anything sometimes.
yeah.
Sometimes
Straight
it's
up.
like, here's some money. I'm not really involved. Y'all
Right.
just spend the money.
They could have
Right.
paid for everything, or they could be
Yeah.
like literally the person at the end of the day going, take this joke out, take that out,
Yeah.
move this around. You really don't you don't know.
Yeah.
It definitely means be nice to them, you know, like don't be a dick. But so now I have to bring up this because I'm a fan. How did you start the Yub Nub podcast?
That is a podcast I could have like started in so many different ways at so many different times. I remember Greg, who I think we crossed paths a few times when we were both in Chicago. We got drinks when he first came out here to write for Colbert, and we naturally fell into just like talking about Star Wars, which is always a great sign to me when the conversation like starts off, how you doing, how's life, and then an hour about Star Wars. And so I think from that conversation we're like, yeah, we should do something about Star Wars. And it's one of those things where you kind of say it and then it kind of fizzles out, but it's the thing you keep saying whenever you bump into each other. And then I was at when I was as a digital writer at Comedy Central, I was Jim Fagan was a director there, and he was always talking about Star Wars, and he knew that I love Star Wars, and every now and then he'd walk up to my cube, was like, we should do something about Star Wars. And so these were the two guys in my ear saying we should do something about Star Wars. And I think that like for a year, maybe 2 years, I like tried to connect us, like let's make it some sort of Star Wars podcast together. And it finally kind of made sense in the pandemic for us to I don't know, just like 3 guys talking about Star Wars. Very atypical, right? 3 guys who just 3 men who want to talk about Star Wars together.
I'll tell you what's atypical to me about it. What's atypical to me about it is it's a Star Wars podcast for people that actually like Star Wars.
Yeah. And they're not angry.
Because I feel like most of the Star Wars content, especially from dudes, is like how much they used to like being how much they used to like being 10 years old. Is really what it's like. I liked everything when I was 8. Why can't life be 8 years old? I'm like, and at the same time, like I don't feel like it's pandering or dishonest. So like if y'all don't like something or there's something that kind of rubs you the wrong way, like y'all will bring it up. It's not like y'all are avoiding those things. A lot of times just still keep it funny when it's like nobody likes Jar Jar Binks or whatever, but there's a lot of comedy to be had in that there's Jar Jar Binks in this movie. Movie. And I think that's a more honest take on it, as opposed to like if you go on YouTube and just put Star Wars or something.
Oh my goodness.
There's so many people that clearly like they hate it, and then also there's a reward for hating it.
Yes, because the algorithm loves that.
Yeah, it'll be like the first thing, you're like SJW ruined Star Wars, and it's just some white dude for 7 hours mad about like one comment from Kelly Marie Tran at in an interview, and so like that.
In that's a galaxy far, far, far away, no women allowed.
Sir. Yeah, that's what I really liked about it, and I think there's like it's like healthy that way. You also get like good guests and stuff, like people that have been involved in writing, involved in Star Wars stuff. So you get some behind the scenes stuff. Y'all also are fans. Y'all have gone to like the Star Wars park and like giving reports of like this is what it's like out there. And so I think that's the enthusiasm that makes me really like the show, and why I'm such a fan. And like I said, that's the difference, because we've all heard 3 dudes give you the why we gotta hate it, but I think it's rare to see people tell you why they like something, you know.
I think once we kind of zeroed in on the idea that this is for people who actually like Star Wars, no matter what we're feeling, if we go on a rant, we try and like always go back to that feeling of like, and this is why we love it. Like we love that Star Wars is this all-encompassing thing where we can have these debates. So kind of returning to that feeling of like, this is
like,
mostly out of jest.
I was
Because
thinking
these
about,
aren't just movies. This isn't a religion. This isn't, we
right.
shouldn't take it that seriously, but there are things worth debating about,
Like I was watching Obi-Wan today. I haven't finished it. No spoilers. I won't spoil anything. But I was like, man, I love Star Wars. I even love the stupid shit about Star Wars.
Yes.
Like even the dumb stuff is still fun to me. Like,
me too.
Yeah.
I remember people were arguing about it might have been the prequels or something, and everybody's trashing them or whatever. And I still remember thinking to myself, like, dog, there's noise in space.
That's what space used to be like a long, long time ago.
Yeah, apparently there was a lot of oxygen out there. We just didn't know. Like, it's like
you can hear blasters.
Yeah, I'm like, I love this stuff, man. This is so fun. Like, and I even love when they do now with all the new content and all the people involved. It's having this effect that, and it seems to happen to everything that's big, right? It always starts off. It's what is normally the imagination of one white man. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of content starts off that way, and he has a white man experience. So normally it's like, all of space has two Negroes or whatever. You're like, okay, but like when they pass the baton off to like bigger and better people, like more people get involved. In this case, Disney's getting involved, and now it's a lot more diverse of a world. So like, I find myself, to me, being more defensive of it than I was before. Like, I'm the opposite, where like if somebody told me they didn't like the original trilogy, I'd be like, all right, that's fine. I like it, but I get it. It has some limitations. But if they told me like they didn't like Reva in the late, I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like,
it's like, you need to really tell me why. Really tell me why you don't like Finn. Really tell me
reason.
Like when it was an 80-year-old white man wizard, it was fine. Right. What happened? What changed?
I need to be hearing something other than misogyny.
When Bill Burr was talking in a Boston accent.
Come on, Boston.
Like, they were like, come on, y'all. Either you're with this stuff or you're not.
Space. Boston in space. No problem. No complaint.
So speaking of space, man, you have your newest project, which is
Maurice On Mars.
Yes.
We watched it today on YouTube.
It is,
I hope you liked
hilarious.
And, we did.
And low key.
it's right up our alley.
Yes. This is our jam, because low key is one of the animes that I really like, because you got to be paying attention, and on the low, while something's happening in the foreground, there are actually other things happening in the background. And they're actually like whispering and jokes and stuff kind of going on.
You gotta get off your phone.
You have to be paying attention. And it was one of those things I was like, this is hilarious. Because they were talking to Maurice's parents. Now Maurice is on Mars. It's on Maurice's parents. And on the low, in the background, the whole world was literally burning down. Like, I was like, and the people on Mars talking about, there are no wars on Earth. And he was like, that's a lie.
Radical Earth theory. Yes. It's so smart.
Yes.
You pack a lot of jokes in a short period of time. Like, these shorts are only like 5 minutes long.
I was dying laughing.
Yeah, like, so and the reason I say it's up our alley is like, we are big into animated comedy. So like Rick and Morty, why can't I think of the one with Jiggity?
Yes.
What is it? What am I thinking?
Is it
Space something? I don't know. But
I'm a
Futurama, like all this stuff, like that. I like all this animated stuff that I watch that is comedy / animated, and so we were like already primed to go when it's just like, oh man, an animated comedy sci-fi setting, let's go, like, and black people in it. Like, I'm like, come on, let's go. So how did the idea come about, and how did how does it work with the Comedy Central thing?
Yeah, it was an idea that I had like very vaguely for like starting probably like 5 years ago, because it was like keeping track of the fact that all the billionaires are trying to go to Mars and tackle space and have private ships to space. That was weird. And I felt like these rich people probably know something, and they're not doing this for no reason. So I kind of made it a concrete thing in my head of like, okay, in about 20 years, there's going to be some people on Mars. And making that a fact in my head made me try and think about concretely, what does being on Mars do to everything? What does being on Mars do to race? What does being on Mars do to religion? What does being on Mars do to culture, do to music, everything, do to sports? So that was just like a go-to thing where like whenever I was like getting drinks with people, I would ask questions about this. In 2020, I was writing for The Tonight Show. The world was on fire. There's lockdown. There's there's the murder of George Floyd. There's the protests after the murder of George Floyd that go across the globe. And then in the middle of those protests, SpaceX had its first private rocket. The first fully private crew went into space. And I feel like I couldn't not imagine ever seeing everything laid out so clearly. You know what I mean? This is the Whitey on the moon scenario. This is the world's on fire. The billionaires are going into space. This is like, I kind of poured everything into this idea, partially because I had heard that Comedy Central was looking for people of color to make something in animated space. This was that time period where every black person I knew was getting a general meeting. I'm not going to lie about that. This was that.
I was pouring out
on this show. I remember like being like, because we would cover these articles that would be like, Wachovia is Wachovia. Wells Fargo is gonna hire. They're pledging to donate this much money and hire more diversity. And I remember being specifically like, listen, black people, if you can hear the sound of my voice, this goodwill is going to run out.
Yes, it will not last ever.
Much faster than you expect. Get every fucking thing you can. Don't feel bad about it. Don't feel guilty about it. Like, do they be feeling bad when they get nepotism? No. Don't you feel bad if the reason they gave you that job is for the first time ever, you got some a job just for being black? Take that shit, take that money, and don't look back. But also with black people, though, the difference is we've been boxed out. So the only people going to get those jobs are people that are probably qualified or overqualified in the first place. So it's like this idea that you had for 5 years, somebody was like, I guess we'll give them a shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like this is an idea that would have had so many hurdles, most likely otherwise.
I've literally heard of white people getting meetings and not having an idea. Like at the meeting, like spitballing, like, all right, we should be able to get you an idea in 48 hours. And like, if me as a black, I'm walking in with like the storyboard, you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, think about friends. Even like
we got artwork, we got the voiceover. In fact, here's the first minute of the show.
Right.
I'm trying to get to that J.J. Abrams level where someone will give me the last Star Wars movie and be like, I don't know, figure it out.
Yeah,
you know that. Can you imagine if they gave that?
Right, like Colin Trevorrow is dropped out or whatever, and then JJ just comes in like, I got it, man. What y'all need? Let me watch some other two movies. Okay, so what y'all do last movie? Oh yeah, I need that. I don't need that. This, we take the black dude out, add some old black slaves. All right. Like that is that I remember it was I want to say it was a Lena Dunham thing, but I can't remember the exact person. But it was just like this. They were like telling the story of how it might have been Lena Dunham talking about getting girls or something. And she was talking about like, she to her.
This is the classic.
This is her telling us like how like what a success story she is and how you just gotta believe in yourself. But she didn't realize that as black people we're looking at like what the fuck. So she's like, I didn't even really, Jed got me the meeting. I didn't really have an idea what I was gonna do. I just kind of want to like do something with my friends, blah blah blah. And everyone's like, and she's like, and I was just like, I'll just come up with something and I'll have something at the next meeting. Everybody's like, you weren't ready. You just had the meeting was what you get ready for. And there's that feeling. So absolutely, man. I'm glad to hear that that you're one of the people that got to take advantage of it and it came to fruition before the goodwill ran out. Because I feel like a lot of shit getting canceled now. Like Netflix over there canceling shit. Netflix took one loss in the history of Netflix Like they lost 200,000 subscribers. The first time they've ever lost subscribers, they was like, cut all the black shit, the gay shit. We don't need any. Cut the black employees. We don't give a fuck. Like they gotta go.
Everything was a luxury, and the name of that show is Final Space.
Final Space.
Yes.
I was hurt when they ended that, and I want somebody to pick that up because where it ended, I was like, where the hell do we go from here?
yeah, it's definitely I love that show, but I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut off your story. So you have this meeting. How's it go?
Yeah, so I think I pitched like 3 ideas, but that was like the one that I had the most like affection towards. So I was very happy that they liked that one. And then it was going forward, and then there were some like internal shifts, I think, because like Viacom and CBS had just merged, and so it was in limbo for like 3 months, and I like didn't know what was going to happen, and then like it miraculously came back. I think like certain people like Steve Elliott, who worked at Comedy Central at the time, like really advocated for it. And then it was just like, let's get this into production as fast as possible. That was my mode of thinking. So let me reach out to, let's like within a couple days, like narrow down what cast we want, figure out within a couple weeks, figure out what animation studio we want to work with. And it's animation is a fascinating process that I love. I'd love to do more of it. But
it's a whole different animal too, because like animation doesn't get paid the same as like other areas and stuff like the guild. There's no like there's like they don't have like a solidified like workers union type thing yet, where it's like you gonna do this, like like even with the Writers Guild shit, because I've never been in union before until that. And there will be shit where like I'd want to do something, and you find out like, no, man, we negotiated. You don't do that shit. Oh, my bad. I didn't know.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go back home and go back to sleep. I didn't know what I was doing. And so with animation, though, there's like a lot of like controversy over there, and how should they be covered? How should they be compensated? And that's probably gonna come to a head at some point very soon.
I've been following that.
Yeah.
And this is just a web series for now. My hope is that it can be a sort of proving ground for something that could be an actual show, where I can get a staff of writers and get a team of people. Because
you've clearly thought about and have a backstory to so many components in it.
Yes.
Like there's just little things you notice. It's like, oh, this is the name of the news network. There's something there with that's a character in this that's layered. There's this is this is the name of the new sport in On Mars. Like, there's a lot of thought,
and like there's so many questions that I have. It's like, eventually we're gonna get the background of the parents. How did you end up there in the first place?
Right.
Eventually we're gonna get to know who is the random black dude that's normally in the background making comments out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And like he's the one that didn't go down. He's the one that got missed. And I was like, it's more to this than meets the eye.
Yeah.
That character is voiced by Dwayne Kennedy, who is one of the greatest comedians of all time. He was someone that was like incredibly happy to get on board, because some of the funniest lines in this were not written by me. They were ad libs from Dwayne Kennedy. Like,
I was gonna ask you about that. Like how
that character was hilarious.
Well, also just I know as a writer you write shit, and I was gonna ask if animation was more regimented than live action, because I know when we write stuff, it's more of a suggestion. Like sometimes they stick all the way to the words, but sometimes they be up in there like, I think my person would say it like this, and you gotta be like, all right, cool. Well, you know what I'm saying? Say it your way, do what you want, and maybe one take of my way if that's okay with everyone. So like there's that feeling from it. But I didn't know if animation does it that way. So is it like you write, then they do the voiceover, and then they animate it? Is that the process?
That's what it is. It's and so I backtracking a little bit. I originally wrote 5 episodes, and we narrowed it down to 3. So I think that's, and I like this actually. I think that's why I really do have like a fleshed out storyline happening with one character that was supposed to be in an episode. And that I think that's why when you watch these, you feel like you're caught in the middle of a fully produced show. Like you feel like this random character has some sort of reality beyond what you're seeing him in. But the production process, and this is my first time really getting into it, there's a lot of opportunity for creativity every step of the way. So I write the script. I really had to like nitpick like a word or like whatever to keep it within those 5 pages. And so when it came to recording the audio, that's when I realized, oh, I can actually split these lines up so it feels more conversational, even though it would have made it more pages on the actual script. So that was like a little like skill that I learned from that. So it's you write the script, then you record the audio, and then you get what's called a radio play, where all the audio is cut together. They put some music that might be good, and you give a couple notes on that until that gets locked. And so once that's locked, you have the locked radio play. You send that to some storyboard artists. They make shot compositions, and then they have an animatic editor cut it into an animatic. So you have a video with the audio going, and you're seeing each shot as it should be laid out. With the audio, a couple, feedback loops on that of like, can we do a shot like this here? Can we maybe like focus on this character during this moment? That kind of thing. That gets locked, and then it's animated, and then there's the process of like, and for this, I mean, ideally, I imagine this would have been a situation where I would go to a physical studio and actually get to know the animators and be able to in person. But this was all through email, which was difficult, but also kind of I gained a lot from it because I really only could do like 2, maybe 3 rounds of notes for each of those parts of production. So I had to be very specific with my emails with time codes of like, can we get a blink here? Can we these eyebrows raise here? Can this person kind of be posed angrily in this moment? And so a lot of just like visual character building, a lot of that kind of thing. But like, there are jokes that are discovered in the storyboard process. There are jokes that are discovered when you're recording with the actors. And especially with this being like the first time in this world, a lot of recording with them was figuring out like, oh, maybe this is how this character works. Like when my original concept of Janice, the Maurice's coworker who might be an alien, I had her just like kind of being a really upbeat person. But the way Claire O'Kane first read the character was very low key, and actually ended up liking that a lot. Like this idea, and that made me change the dynamic of how I originally envisioned Maurice, because I thought Maurice was going to be more of a low key sort of Daria type, but now Maurice is a little more energetic than Janice and that kind of thing. So it's yeah.
and the thing about her possibly being an alien, which is funny, they're actually talking to each other, and between them is a sign that says like, if you see an alien warn somebody. And I busted out laughing.
Yeah, and then like the other thing is like, what's the turnaround time like between you like submitting like, this is what I wrote, to you getting back something in the form of like, this is what it would look like animated?
This has been a 2-year process. I think like I turned in the first scripts maybe it was June of 2020. So there was that process of writing and rewriting, and then there was that like 3 or 4 months of limbo that I was telling you about. Then it got back on track, but it's been a long process. And I'm just like thrilled that it's out. I think when it came out, there were certain people who felt challenged by the title Radical Earth Theory, or felt challenged about the fact that it's a black main character. It was
hilarious to me. I started falling out laughing.
Yeah.
Or felt like this was...
As soon as they were like, there were no wars on Earth. And I was like, what the fuck?
I was like,
wait a minute.
I was like, I was with the character. I was like, that's not true. That's right. I think I said it for the character said. I was like, that's a lie.
Yeah.
I was screaming at the TV.
So good.
But I think it's like it's been interesting like seeing it, because I think there's a bit of paid promotion going, so it's just like popping up on people's computers, people who might not, but it's funny looking through the comments of like oh, another example of bad woke liberal comedy, that kind of thing. So my favorite so far, there's a comment in episode 2 where it just says "Black people cartoons." ... So if you can watch this and you do like it, please give a positive comment, because I was pretty distraught for a couple of days because of these
That does suck. Like, that is like, we just started putting our show on YouTube, and
Yes,
so
we have avoided YouTube for a long time.
so far it's been mostly, I mean, 99.9% positive comments and likes and stuff. But then there's like one time I saw like a dislike on a video. I was like, what the fuck was that about? You know what I mean? It's just like, and it sucks to have that kind of like creative brain where it's like, because I'm not it's not rational to expect universal praise, and I do know the kind of world that we're talking about this stuff and talking to people about. So it's like, I've seen what happens to everyone else. I don't know why my brain is like, but that shouldn't happen to me.
That's what happened to me. Like, I really was not thinking that anyone, like, to me, this is pretty tame in terms of trying to, like, it's not even woke to, it's like, it's just like,
it's just funny. Like, it's just funny. It wasn't message, like that. It was just funny. But I didn't even think to look at the comments, which is something else that's interesting, because like, unless you're the person who made it, or you're the kind of person that's on YouTube a lot, so it's your social network, most people don't even think look at those comments.
I know I don't.
You know what I mean? But I definitely would. But I didn't even think of it till you just said it. I was like, of course, there's a bit. Hopefully, you blow up enough to where there's gonna be somebody somewhere going like, and let me tell you, I got a 7-hour video about Tim Barnes, and let me tell you what's wrong with this guy. Is the PC, social justice, liberal culture. Like, hopefully you make it that big, man, and hopefully it's so big you're not even looking at the comments. You know?
I made a mistake of trying to personalize the comments in the first episode, where I was like, hey, I created this, I hope you like it. And then trying to keep everything positive. But now they know the face, they know the name of the person who made it, and that I was like, oh man, I it's a quick learning curve for me.
You gotta be like Beyonce, man. Like Beyonce does whatever she does, comes down out of the mountain, delivers the 10 commandments, and then goes back to fuck, and like, good luck going through the desert by yourselves. I won't be there. You know what I mean? Like, I do not. That is the ultimate marketing platform. Her, Rihanna, like, they figured it out. You ain't never caught them arguing in the comments about nothing. You can say, oh, we hate her, she's a Black Panther terrorist. She was like, whatever, y'all gonna get this work. But yeah, man, it's a pleasure to meet you, man. What else are do you have anything else you're working on now, or like?
There are, I'm working on things that I can't really talk about, but another pandemic project of mine, I had this webcomic that I wrote, and this illustrator, Grant Lindahl, would draw them, called Uncertain Life. We're kind of taking a break now to retool it. We did 100 issues of it. And now we want to just give it a little more focus, because it was just like, just for fun, trying to figure out how to make jokes in 4 panels and that kind of thing. So that's kind of what I'm diving into now. But yeah, this was so much fun. I'm glad we can have gone beyond being Twitter co-Twitter followers.
Man. Phil, and you got to come back, and then we'll do like the regular show. Like, our first time we have people on, we always like to interview them, so that people can get the story and all that stuff and see what they're doing and go follow it. But then, like, come back subsequently and we'll play our games, like fucking with Black people and guess the race and shout out the Black capitalists and people that are making a lot of money and stuff. Like, it'll be a good time, man.
Oh yes, so who's gonna be coming to the cookout?
You pass the test and you can be our friend now. So. We can all stay inside together. All right, Tim, man, thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
Tell the people where to find you.
Yes.
And, then we'll close it out.
You can follow me on Twitter at TimBarnes451. That's the temperature at which jokes burn. And you can get other information from me at TimBarnesComedy.com. And episode 3, it's only 3 episodes of Maurice On Mars coming out. So episode 3 comes out this Friday. You can find that on Comedy Central's animated YouTube channel. And this episode is about Maurice accidentally starting the first recession on Mars. So it's a lot of fun.
Oh no!
Yeah, man. I really do hope it gets picked up, man. I love to see it fleshed out, like 30-minute episodes or whatever.
Me
Like I
too.
feel like there's a rich tapestry of ideas that you're presenting in such a short period of time. And yo, I'd be remiss to say y'all should check out, if you're a Star Wars fan, check out the Yub Nub podcast. It's a really great podcast for people that like Star Wars, and without it being like blowing smoke up your ass, for lack of a better term. But y'all, like, I think y'all had a episode June 1st, fan racism, and I was just it was like going to church. I was just in the car like, yes, amen. That's what I'm saying. Like, I was agreeing heavy with y'all. So.
Yes, I think you played that one, and I was in the background when they was talking about Reva and stuff like that. I was like, you know what? I 100% agree, because it's so much underlying things, and people don't like to be called out on their bullshit.
Yeah.
And so you're like, this is what it really is. Then everybody wants to backtrack like that's not what it is.
Yeah, I just don't like the way she blinks. So just gonna I don't talk because she's black. I don't like I don't like
it's her accent. She doesn't sound like a white guy from 1960s.
A professionally trained actor. Okay.
I like the other thing I was gonna say too is I went back and watched A New Hope with Karen, and the sass that Leia has in that movie. I have forgot how epic it was. She roasted these niggas. Like, they came to rescue her, and she immediately, like, her first words to Luke were like, "You kind of short for a stormtrooper." Like, it was just, you're like, "What are you two idiots got a plan?" Like, it was like, they saving you. You sent a message in a droid for someone to come save you, and they showed up and she was like, "Y'all ain't Ben Kenobi." She wasn't even gonna go with them.
No, even Chewie got the business. He got a straight bullet. I was like, what did he have to do with anything?
Even she wasn't even gonna go with them until they was like, Ben Kenobi. They was, oh, okay, well, I guess if he's got something to do with this. And so it's funny to watch people be mad at the little girl actress for being sassy. I was like, but wouldn't that be the kid that grows up into Leia?
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
All right, and y'all. You can't judge kids with that level of a midi-chlorian count. You can't be like, a 10-year-old doesn't act like that. This is a 10-year-old princess whose father is Darth Vader. She can be
like, y'all lucky she didn't turn out way worse than that, to be honest. Right? We seen what happened to Anakin. Okay. Like, y'all, both of them kids, like, God, they might as well be angels compared to this little dude, man. He was a menace, right? He was blowing up shit at that age. He was flying starfighters in the ships and blowing them up. Like, they leave them alone. They just babies. All right, y'all. That's it. We'll be back Saturday for our feedback show. And until then, I love you.
I love you too.
Mwah. Bye, everybody. Bye, Tim. It was fun, bro.
This is so much fun. Yeah.